Lawyers Monthly Market Update. I'm Raea Principal of Vanguard Lawyers. Today we've got Ricky Briggs, one of the youngest auctioneers that's up and coming, and he's building LJ Hooker national team. So Ricky, how did you get into auctioneering?
Auctioneering came about, it was a bit of a funny thing actually. I went along to a charity night once and the auctioneer didn't show up, and little did I know that it was a room full of real estate agents. But being as young and energetic as I was, I whacked up my hand and said that I'd have a go at it to do what I thought was an auction. And then basically after that, I was offered jobs left, right and centre. It was sort of something that I stepped into.
Yeah, oh, that's great. You can definitely see the passion that Ricky has for auctioneering, and currently he's based in the Sydney market. So did you want to tell us a bit about how the market currently is going down there?
Yeah, so we are building a New South Wales and ACT auction team, but predominantly, as you mentioned, in Sydney. Yeah. The market is, we've seen some really strong results that have come through over the last little while, and the reason for this is we've got a number of different driving factors, but with the spring market being here, we naturally see 30 to 40% more stock hit the marketplace. With that as such, economists are saying that the marketplace is actually slowing down. Slowing down is a particular term that I don't think really refers to it. I think it's actually steadying up from what we've actually been seeing. So what actually transpires is that properties come into the market, the buyers thin out, and naturally we still see the sales occurring. Now, it's been recently pitched at around the 80% mark. We've seen it drop down to high 60s, early 70s. But in saying that, there's also been 30 to 40% more stock that's hit the marketplace. So naturally, it's sitting in the same spot that it roughly was before.
Oh, good. Currently, the RBA has put on hold for interest rates. So do you have a view on that at all, Ricky?
Very important decision. Yeah. Obviously, Malcolm Turnbull coming into the Prime Ministerial role as leader of the Liberal Party. It was the first RBA announcement to be made. They have kept interest rates on hold, and that's great. We're seeing a number of strengthening factors coming back into the marketplace, and I feel that if we hold it as low as it is, as I mentioned, 54 years in the making, that it just allows first-time buyers, investors and families that are either wanting to upsize or downsize a better opportunity to then go out and lend the money to be able to afford what they need.
Great. So with the property cycle being every 7 years, where would you say we're currently on that cycle? If there is the cycle, and if the current market demand has changed the 7-year cycle?
It's funny that you mentioned cycle, because there's two different cycles. There's a property cycle that we speak about, which is every 7 years, and then there's a double a turnover factor, which is every 10 years. So in theoretical paper point of view, in every 10 years, the property should double its sale price. Now, what we're actually seeing at the moment is that 7 years is actually sped up, and the reason for that is because we've seen such tremendous results out in the marketplace that people are doing as much to their house as they can in as little as short a time, and then they're pushing it for sale again to capitalise on the extra expenditure that's out there in the marketplace.
Okay. So we're getting a lot of, would you say, younger generation growth that's coming into the market, possibly with even more money, buying a property at auction at decent value, renovating and then reselling at a better value.
I agree, and the reason why I say that, and not only have we seen first-time buyers, but we've also seen investors. Really, 2015 has been the year of the investor, and the reason why we say that is because we look at interest rates. Interest rates are at a 54-year low. They've never been this low at the moment. Banks have been pushing the funds out left, right and centre. If you've got a decent capital in something else, by way of equity in other properties or other businesses as such, or even hold a great deposit in place, what you can actually do is then utilise that to purchase more property. So first-time buyers, it's never been easier in my opinion. Whilst prices have been pushed up marginally, I do believe that we've seen more first-time buyers, and the government are accommodating that with their first-time buyers grant. Investors alike, we've also seen a lot of strong competition from investors coming into the marketplace this year as well.
Oh, good. So are overseas investors changing the market dynamics at all?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because there are a number of economic factors that really influence this. With our dollar taking a 20% hit against the American dollar, that's one particular factor. Our dollar not stacking up to the Chinese dollar as well. Whilst we're seeing other environmental factors drop, we're actually seeing investment from Chinese property owners step into the marketplace. Now, there's quite a bit of hype in the media at the moment around Chinese investment. Is it great for the country? In my opinion, I believe it is. And the reason why we say that is because there's a lot of properties out there in the upper echelon of the market where Australians simply don't have that money. Now, the reason why that is because the Chinese are bringing over a lot of older wealth. Now, that is giving Australia a boost up in terms of the economy, where we're shortening in other sectors. Coal mining sector, for example, prime example. Coal prices have dropped significantly. There are a number of companies that are basically having financial downturns in Australia, more so around the Hunter Valley and Newcastle and Hunter regions. We're seeing it quite tough in the coal mining sector. However, they are expanding in other departments, such as real estate.
Would there be a slowdown in demand as well, possibly in the coming years? What's your forecast? Let's say for 2016.
I think with what we're seeing at the moment and the spring demand that's come on with the 30 to 40% more property as we've seen, I think that that's going to steady out. I don't think it will slow completely, but I do definitely feel that it will steady out. We're seeing some results that are sort of being pushed out, so to speak, as we go now. I feel that 2016 will be a great year for property transactions, but we certainly won't be seeing the 80 to 70% clearance rates. I feel that it'll steady out between your 50 to 75%, somewhere in that range, and it'll basically just steady along that line.
Great. So coming back to you, how about local developments and what your prospect is, so of the current market locally?
Locally, so what we tend to see is that whatever happens in Sydney, it sort of travels north, and it takes around 6 months to reach for every 2 hours in travel. So from Sydney to Newcastle, we know that it's 2 hours in travel time. It normally takes 6 months for the results in Sydney to push up the line. So here in the Hunter region, or in the Newcastle region, so to speak, what we're seeing at the moment is that it's really starting to push up. Now, we're seeing some great level of property, good stock levels coming onto the market rather, and we're seeing some really good results take place. Is it a great time to buy? Yes, it is, but it's going to get better, because really where it sits at the moment is that the Hunter region is starting to push up in price, but we'll actually see them steady out as more stock comes onto the market. So springtime really is a good time to purchase towards the back end. So late November, early December, I feel, in my opinion, will be a great time to purchase.
So Ricky, I've heard that you're doing a couple of local developments. So from your personal experience, what do you think, or what could you provide to the audience that you'd look out for with those?
It's funny that you ask that, because I do have a couple of developments happening locally, and unfortunately I've had a pretty bad experience with a previous solicitor. They had an in-house solicitor that was there that basically said they'd make everything as easy as possible, but when I actually came to sign the documents on the day, there was 2 extra easements running down either side of the block. So there was a number of factors that then didn't match my building criteria. Basically, things like the water board would no longer accept the plans because they also were not aware of the 2 boundaries that had been shifted. There are a number of things that inside that easement, a retaining wall had been whacked on. So I had a pretty negative experience myself. But in saying that, it's really important that you place yourself with a decent solicitor. I know that you guys do a range of different things to basically help not only first-time buyers but investors in the marketplace for their next purchase. What are some of those things that you guys do as a solicitor-based company to help with that?
Well, essentially when it comes to an auction, it's really buyers beware, isn't it? So what you've got to look at is make sure you've done your due diligence initially. That's one of the key criteria, I'd say. And when you get to the auction date, you should be ready with your finance. Not only that, know your contract and know that you're comfortable with it. What we do at Vanguard Lawyers is we're able to explain the contract through, make sure that we've fully reviewed it, and give you guidance if you actually do win the property. One of the things with developments, especially with the volume of developments at a development site, the developer has to sometimes rezone the property. So that rezoning could be registered or may not be registered. And if it's not registered, they've got a lot of work to get it through council. So once it's through council, there could be issues in the contract, issues with your title, and that's what we need to look for.
And I think that one of the most important things is that if you were to come to someone like yourself from Vanguard Lawyers, it really does highlight the facts and the points of what they need to look for. We're seeing a lot at the moment where there are a lot of these issues in developments where they're simply falling through because there's been a miscommunication on title, or there's been an error in judgment of some particular things. But I think definitely one of the highlight points is placing yourself with a decent solicitor to be able to help you through those particular contractual terms and knowing what you're really getting into.
No, you're right. And what it does, it makes you feel comfortable on the auction day. You notice that in Queensland currently, I know that there's a few APRA law changes that have come into place, or regulations. In that current market, what they've done is that they enter delayed settlements over a fairly decent sized period, so sometimes 12 or 24 months.
Yes.
So with the legislation changes, what it's going to do is that settlements at let's say at settlement, they could fall over because of the regulations coming in. Did you have any thoughts from that perspective for that market area?
So there's a number of different factors there already. If we're talking about auctions specifically, auctions are already quite tough in the Queensland marketplace. And the reason why we say that is because they cannot suggest a price to you. So if you are a buyer and you go to a house and you say, well, how much is it worth? They are not allowed to tell you a price by law. So already it's quite tough to purchase a home by auction, because you really have to be up to speed with what you're purchasing on the day of auction, when it comes to being a successful purchaser. The second thing with that, with investments, correct, they have seen a lot of properties that have had a delayed sunset clause, so they are exchanging some 12 to 24 months later, and we are seeing a lot fall behind. Now, what they're doing is that they're securing a 5 or a 10% deposit, and then once the marketplace has shifted, the buyers are simply pulling out. So they are trying to regulate how they go about off the plan subject sales, so basically where the exchange occurs, where the money is then paid by the consumer to certainly lock the property in, and also what the rules and regulations are behind that, because we are seeing both parties at the moment get stung from different legalities that people aren't aware of.
No, that's true. So locally, we've got at least 2,000 to 3,000 houses selling. There's a couple of developments. There's Trinity Point just at Cooranbong. There's actually Trinity Point at Morisset Park. There's also a JPG development at Cooranbong for about 2,000 houses or so.
Wadigan Park, yeah.
That's it, Wadigan Park. And there are a few other smaller developments locally. How do you think that affects the Lake Macquarie or Central Coast area?
Well, our viewers may or may not know, but Lake Macquarie itself is one of the largest saltwater lakes in the Southern Hemisphere. So we've got 2,000 odd homes over in Cooranbong, and we've got another couple of other 1,000 homes existing over in Trinity Point. Now the great thing about Trinity Point is that we are going to see a world-class marina facility over there as well. So we are going to see an influx from boat owners up and down the eastern coast coming into Lake Macquarie. Now that's only going to stimulate the economy locally more so than it ever has done before. The great thing about that is that Cooranbong and Morisset, the whole area as a whole, but more so Cooranbong, has actually been earmarked for major growth in New South Wales over the period of 2015. We're going to see a new amount of infrastructure going over there. We're seeing a new amount of schooling, educational facilities that are going to take place over there as well. Public transport will certainly adjust to accommodate those particular needs, and as such, we'll start to see the area boom a lot more than what it has been, as opposed to a sleepy little town as it has been over the last couple of years. I feel that it's going to be great for the area.
No, I totally agree, and that's why we, obviously Vanguard Lawyers, are based in Morisset, and also we're thinking about the Gold Coast as well for a branch, because I know that there's a lot of influx of funds, especially from overseas, that's coming in there, and that's why we semi-touched on that. But thank you, Ricky, for today.
Pleasure, thanks for having me.
Absolute valuable source of experience that you brought to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.